Welcome back from the bye week, Carolina faithful. The Panthers and Buccaneers are tied at the top of the NFC South, and Carolina is in control of its own destiny when it comes to the playoffs. This is the Processing Blue podcast, where we process blue for you. I'm Charlotte Observer Panthers beat writer Mike Kaye, and I'm joined by the Charlotte Observer's resident Panthers historian and columnist, the wonderful Scott Fowler. On this episode of the podcast, we will offer up some injury updates, explain the NFC standings and the playoff race, discuss our biggest concerns for the road ahead, and preview the Saints game, which holds a lot of weight in this run to the postseason. But before we do all that and get jam-packed with this podcast, let's check in on the columnist. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Excited to have some December football that matters. It's been a long time.
Yes, it has. It's been a long time. 7 years, in fact. This is kind of a weird situation because the Panthers are coming off a bye week, and they really won the bye week, right? Because the Saints, to recap, upset the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road on Sunday. The Panthers also are getting back a litany of injured players this week. And so I thought we should touch on that off the top. So, one, now everything's even at the top of the NFC South, which we'll get into a little bit later. But the Panthers are likely to get back this week. These names: Trevon Merrick, coming off suspension; J.C. Horn, who's currently in concussion protocol but is trending in the right direction, according to Dave Canales; Claudin Cherylus, same diagnosis; Christian Roseboom, the starting linebacker, who's been sidelined with hip and hamstring injuries for a couple of weeks; and then, oh, by the way, starting center Cade Mays, who has been battling an ankle injury. Scott, could the Panthers have come off the bye week in better position than this, with where the NFC South is and where these injuries are? Go.
That was, just about a perfect bye weekend. I guess if you were just wishing for everything, you'd like Robert Hunt to be healthy too, and his window won't open yet. I hope they'll get him back before the end of the season, but everything else, I mean, that was a very late bye week. As I was talking to Austin Corbett yesterday in the locker room, he said you kind of dreaded that bye week being at week 14 when you first saw the schedule, but it actually worked out really well. They beat the Rams, got to, linger on that victory a while, and then got to sit home and watch the Saints pull off a monumental upset. So they were cheering for the Saints on Sunday, and then now we're trying to figure out everything they can to beat them on Monday. I think of those names you mentioned, Mike. Roseboom's really that's a big deal because I think, he had really started to play better before his injuries, kind of looked more comfortable in the system. And, of course, Horn and Trevon are going to make the secondary better. I think this is a game, if the Panthers, can just score about 20 points or so, they'll probably win this game because their defense right now, especially, Dave Canales said yesterday, we're as strong as we've been all year. And I think that's accurate. I think they're coming off in a very good shape right now.
It's a good time to be strong, right? You have 4 more games left. The NFC South division race is right there in front of you. It's a 2-team race, and it's even at 7-6. But as you look at the standings, and Zach, if we can pull up that full screen, the Panthers are just outside the playoffs just due to a minimal tiebreaker. The Panthers still control their own destiny. But this is what the standings look like for the top 7 right now. So you've got the Rams, Packers, Eagles, and Bucks as the division leaders right now. And then you've got the awesome Seahawks, 49ers, and the contending Bears of all teams, with Ben Johnson bringing up the rear, so to speak. Here, let's take a look at where the Panthers are in the hunt, so to speak, as far as the teams just outside the playoffs. So from a wild card standpoint, the Lions are standing in the way of the Panthers being, the next ones up in the wild card. They're 8-5. it's going to be very tough to catch the Bears and the 49ers, especially after losing to the 49ers in week 12. So the Panthers' best shot at all this is winning the division. We've said that all year long. It's a division that tends to be around 9 to 10 wins. That's doable for the Panthers down this road of four games. Now, if we can go to the next slide here, for those who are watching, the division round tiebreakers are kind of weird. It's head-to-head, then division, then common opponents, then conference record, then strength of victory, then strength of schedule. The Panthers can get into the postseason and win the division by simply beating the Bucs twice. Now that seems simple, right? But the Panthers have lost to the Bucs 9 out of the last 10 tries. So it's not going to be that easy, and that's part of the reason why this week is actually pretty important, as much as people want to suggest, hey, just beat the Bucs twice and you'll get in the playoffs. The Saints game is the most important insurance in this whole kind of sphere of trying to get to the playoffs. Scott, when you look at this totality of these 4 weeks, the Saints, then the Bucs at home, then the Seahawks at home, then the Bucs on the road, what's your biggest takeaway? And where is it that this team really needs to kind of hone in on pushing through?
Well, and as I talk, for those watching on YouTube, which you'll always find this podcast, Zach, can you go back to the NFC 1 through 7 slide? Because I want to talk a little bit about where the Panthers would slot in if they get there. So let's be optimistic and assume they will. So they would take the Bucs' place at number 4. If you're not real familiar with how that works, it's the division winners are always going to get a home game, and they're always going to be seeded 1 through 4. And the Panthers most likely aren't going to catch one of those other division winners, although after the Eagles' loss, 3 is a small possibility. I would say beyond that, not going to happen. But 3 or 4, probably 4. But if you're 4, look, you're going to play 5 in the way the playoffs would work. So you play Seattle. So actually, and maybe you play the Rams if Seattle ends up winning that division. But one way or the other, it's probably going to be a preview of something you've already done. You might play San Francisco again too. So no easy outs, of course, in the playoffs. That wherever the Panthers do it's going to be difficult. But hey, getting there is a huge part of the battle. So I think if you look at the final 4 games, 9 and 8 could get it done for the Panthers, but they have to win the right 2, right? I think if they've got to at least split with the Bucs, going 0-2 with the Bucs that will finish them. Going 2-0, that will make it go the other way, and the Panthers will win. Most likely it's going to be 1-1. So at that point, then you have to win, like you say, this New Orleans game. You've got to get your you've got to tie in the division. Right now, people say, why are the Bucs in front of the Panthers? They've technically got the right record. In the tiebreaker scenario right now, it's because the Panthers have a slightly worse record in common opponents. So it's going down to the 3rd tiebreaker, where the Panthers are 4-5 and the Bucs are 5-4. But all that can change. The easiest way is obviously to beat the Bucs twice. That is going to be very difficult, not impossible. But the other easiest way is just, win 3 games probably, and that'll probably get it done. And so one of them, you have to beat New Orleans, right? You got to beat a team that's 3-10 who's already beaten you once. That game, of course, Mike, what were your thoughts originally on how that one, because I was just stunned at how poorly the Panthers played in that game a month ago.
Well, yeah, and to make this crystallized, if the Panthers beat the Saints this Sunday and then they beat the Buccaneers and the Buccaneers lose to Atlanta on Thursday, let's kind of do that in reverse order because we'll do it in chronological. The Buccaneers host the Falcons on Thursday. If they lose to the Falcons and the Panthers beat the Saints, Week 16 is for the division title. Straight up.
For the Panthers, it would.
For the Panthers,
not
right.
for the, yeah.
the Panthers can win the division if they win 2 straight and the Buccaneers lose 2 straight. The same thing can be said for the Buccaneers. If the Panthers lose to the Saints and then lose to the Buccaneers and the Bucs beat the Falcons this week, that game is for the division for the Buccaneers. So the Saints are the ultimate insurance policy here. Beating them is what helps you stay alive and gives you wiggle room if you lose to the Bucs at home in Week 16, one way or another.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's talk about the Saints game from Week 10 because it was a mess. The Saints defeated the Panthers at home 17-7. I mean, they couldn't run the ball. Rico Dowdle averaged 2.9 yards per carry. Bryce Young might as well have been using the passing game as the running game. He averaged 5.2 yards per passing attempt, not per completion, but per passing attempt. He also had that brutal interception to Alontae Taylor where the corner made a buzz play. He looked like he was going to sack or he was going to blitz pre-snap and then floated back to the flat and intercepted a pass that was nowhere near Tetairoa McMillan to kind of clinch the deal for the Saints. He also had Young also had a lost fumble. And then Tyler Shuck, the rookie, diced up the defense and had 2 pass completions go over 50 yards. So, yeah, it was not a great all-around game. It was probably the worst overall game that the team played. I remember Dave Canales saying how personally he took losing that type of game, especially against a team that on paper is less talented, is among the league bottom feeders in the standings, and really is more focused on rebuilding than getting to the playoffs. The defense also gave up 105 yards to running backs. Like it was just like a, as the kids say, an S show in a lot of ways, a show. Scott, you were in the press box with me. Like, what was your mindset after that one?
Well, I thought it was their worst loss of the season, as you said. Buffalo and New England, the point spread was much worse, like, around 30 points in each game. However, those are playoff teams, and the Saints were 1-8. Let's remember 1-8 coming in here, and the Panthers were, I can't remember 5-4, something like that, but plenty good enough to, you would think, beat them comfortably. And instead, I was looking at the total yardage of this game, Mike. I was refreshing myself on the stats, but it was 388 to 175. That's ridiculous. I mean, the Saints more than doubled the Panthers in total yardage. It was the second lowest, I believe, in the Canales era, second lowest number of total yards they'd ever had. And what the Saints did, I expect them to do again Sunday if we bring it back to that. They just stacked the box. There were 8 in the box all the time. They were always running against an extra defender, and they said, beat us passing the ball. And that was frequently a way that they would, the Panthers got beaten last year too. And they just could not do it. I mean, Tetairoa McMillan had a good game. I think he go for around 100, but everybody else, I mean, I remember not thinking for a while Xavier Legette wasn't on the field, and then he finally drew a penalty, and then I remembered, oh, yeah, he is playing. He's just completely smothered on every play. Cannot tight ends, nothing. I mean, throwing it to guys out of the backfield, which has worked better more recently, nothing. I mean, 175 total yards is that's embarrassing. They scored on the first possession, and then they went 8 or 9 straight without it. So I thought actually in that game, and I expect this again on Sunday, that the defense played pretty well. The defense was 10-7 in the fourth quarter. They were holding them in there, giving them a chance for as long as they could give them a chance. And then, as you say, Bryce threw that horrible interception. Saints scored one more time, and that was that. So, yeah, terrible loss. There's a lot of things in play, but that's one of them. They've got a lot of vengeance is mine sort of vibe, I think, in the locker room right now.
So when we talk about this game's kind of different because if you study the evolution of Tyler Shuck this season, in their 2 wins, over the NFC South. So this past Sunday against the Bucks, and then that game against the Saints, or sorry, against the Panthers, he looked like two different quarterbacks. Against the Panthers, he was very pocket oriented. He looked like Matt Ryan out there. And then against the Buccaneers, there was a lot more movement, a lot of, RPOs and runs, and
Yeah, he scored on one of those RPOs, the 34-yarder. I think that was
right, looking like Ryan Tannehill, like prime Ryan Tannehill when he was with the Titans that first year and took them to the playoffs. So they have to be very aware of his mobility in the pocket, but they also have to be really aware of his ability to just throw dots down the field. I mean, this is going to be a challenge. Like, I understand that the Saints are this lowly team in the standings at 3-10, and the Panthers are favored by 2.5 points. You get 3 for being at home, so really they're 5.5 point favorites against the Saints. So, I mean, I don't know. I'd kind of take the points there. I think this is going to be a really tight game. They haven't won in New Orleans since Steve Wilkes was the interim head coach in the finale in 2022. They just don't play well in New Orleans, at least in recent history, at least since I've been on the beat.
Oh, and forever history too. They've always had trouble down there. I mean, Drew Brees just beat them like a drum for a decade down there.
Yeah, and so you don't want to look ahead to Tampa, but it's the totality of these next two games that'll really tell you if the Panthers are going to be in contention for this thing all the way through. And they really need to focus on the running game. Chuba Hubbard looks healthy again. I would lean on him pretty heavily. He's the type of runner that can affect the Saints. I think they lean too heavily on Rico Dowdle's ability for, boom or bust, big plays. They have since discovered that T-Mac doesn't have to be the be-all, end-all. I wrote an analysis column right after that game about spreading the ball around. They have done that for the most part since. They need to do that here. Jalen Coker has to come up big. Xavier Legette has to come up big. The tight ends need to be used well. This is going to be a game where it's going to take the entire village. And if they screw up here and there, the Saints could bite them. They're very opportunistic, just like the Panthers defense. And, we've seen this Panthers defense is more talented than it was last year, but they are way more opportunistic and kind of, I don't want to say grimy, but like gritty. And sometimes grit outweighs talent, especially when it comes to technique. And I think if this defense plays like it did in week 10 and the offense is confident, they will win this game.
Yeah, I tend to agree. They're going to have to not commit the real cheap turnover here, but I mean, Shuck is a guy you got to be able to influence a rookie more than they did in that that first game where he threw for 282. If you remember, that was the game I think J.C. Horn got beat by Olave down the sideline, just fell down and got beat for like one of those 50 or 60-yard touchdowns. And, I mean, Horn, that happens. That happens to all the corners. Horn is a great corner, but you just can't have your best players making plays like that. They got to make plays where they're making the pick or whatever and quieting down that Superdome crowd. I've, been to, 20, 25 games in the Superdome watching the Panthers mostly lose over the years. And I will say it is always loud, even if they're bad. It's always loud. The noise in there, it's an ancient building. It reverberates in a weird way. You're up in the absolute worst seat I've ever been in a press box. You're up by the rafters and it's freezing cold. You always have to wear a coat in there because the AC is coming somehow right at you. So it's not a great environment for players, media, coaches, any of it. It's tough. It's a tough place to win. And, when the Panthers did win down there, it was mainly Cam Newton carrying them or, a couple of studs, a couple of big-time players doing it, and they're going to have to come up. I agree that this is going to be close. I do not see a Panthers rout by any means, but I think they'll, they'll play better, and they need to. I mean, this is a team that just beat the Bucks, and watching a lot of that game, I mean, the Saints aren't really fluky. They're pretty good right now. I think it was a lot of their problem early was starting Spencer Rattler. I think they had the wrong quarterback in there. Now Shuck turns out to be pretty darn good. So, and he's big. As you say, he's a big guy who can run. He's like 6'5".
Mm-hmm.
I saw a picture of him and Bryce shaking hands after that first a month ago, and it's quite a difference, of course, as it is with many quarterbacks and Bryce. Bryce is going to have to be good, as you say, spray the ball around. I look for them to get the, as you say, Coker, and I think maybe one of the tight ends involved, maybe get Trimble. You need a big play from somebody like that in this game, I think, too.
All right, so before we get into our biggest concern over the next 4 games, let's predict this one. I'm going to say 20-17 Panthers. This is going to be some late game heroics by Bryce Young. They're going to be down. I'm going to be even specific about this. I think heading into the final 2 minutes, they will be down 17-13. A lot of woe is me on social media. I think Bryce Young leads a game-winning drive that ends with a Chuba Hubbard game-winning touchdown. And I'm going to say 20-17. What do you got, Scott?
Very exact. I like that. Similar. I would, as you say, if I were a gambling man, which I'm not, but I'd probably take the Saints and the points. In my prediction, it's going to be 17-16 Panthers. Low scoring. A place where it's just hard to grind out many points, and the Panthers score just enough, to where they're ending up winning it with a late field goal or something. But I think they're going to keep the Saints down into the teens. And so, as I say, if they can get to 20, I think they'll win. 17 in my prediction will be enough. 17-16 Carolina.
Boom. Well, can't wait to write that story at the buzzer if these scores hold. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, I think there are some glaring things that you look at this team and this Jekyll and Hyde roller coaster ride of a season, and you say, if they can't get better here, yikes. Or if they get worse here, and it seems like it's trending this way, yikes. Scott, what's your biggest concern heading into the final 4 games of the season?
The scoring points, I think, and particularly Bryce's play. I just think that, as you're mentioning, the Jekyll and Hyde effect and the sort of roller coaster they've been on all year, a lot of it has to do with how well they score. I mean, if you look at, there was a stretch in this season where they scored under 20, 5 out of 6 games under 20, and that is depressing. I remember talking to Greg Olson about this at one point, and he said if they can just start losing games 32-30 instead of 13-7, people will be much happier. And better than that, they've actually won some games 30-27 and, in that range. But also they've lost some games like this last one, 17-7. They've had several games where they haven't even gotten to 10. So I think Bryce, he's got to play confidently. He's got to be a guy who's elusive. I mean, he's not going to stand in there and take hits and make throws out of that, but he can run his way out of things and, make plays where he's with his feet. And that is Bryce at his best. And he's got to get someone else, as you say, involved besides T-Mac. Got to see Leggett or Coker or somebody. As you say, Chuba may be an X factor for him because Chuba now looks like a guy who deserves 50% of the carries again. And, I don't say that lightly because I campaigned for Rico earlier in the year. But I think that's my big concern, though, is offensively, Mike. I think they've got a good team at this time of year has got to be scoring at least in the 20s to win games. That's where they got to get.
So I'm going to go to the opposite side of the ball. This pass rush is not good. They've gotten better at stopping the run on defense. They've gotten better at even in the passing game as far as coverage goes. The Panthers are ranked 31st, that's second to last in the league in sacks through 13 games. They have 18 sacks. The only team with less in that span is the 49ers, who have 16. Now, I know a lot of people were bent out of shape when they cut Jadeveon Clowney. He's got 4 sacks on the season, so he'd be tied with Derek Brown for the lead here. But he also produced 2 sacks in this past game against the Chiefs. So it wasn't like he was lighting the world on fire prior to that. But the reality of the situation is Patrick Jones is on IR, season-ending IR. DJ Wanham has played over 60% of the snaps and has 0 sacks. Nick Scorton got hot in the middle of the season. He's flashed a lot. He's gotten a lot of pressure, just hasn't closed. He's got 3 sacks on the season. Prince Umanmielen, who's more of a third down guy, he's got 1.5. He's been a little disappointing of late. But then you've got your depth guys like Travis Gibson, who has 0 sacks, and Thomas Incoom, who's a special teams standout. He's got 0 sacks. So it's just, if you can't pressure Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, you will lose games. Because they can slice you and dice you, and they can make these, playground-like throws. And Tyler Shuck, to his credit, did the same thing against Tampa this Sunday and against the Panthers in Week 10. So the pressure department has to be stacked, and if they can't get better, I mean, they're not going to fix it, but if they can't force regular pressure, they're going to have a problem. And outside linebacker, the lack of sack production has been evident. They're going to have to rely on interior pressure from Sean Wharton and Derek Brown and Ashawn Robinson as well. And until they can kind of bring the quarterback down for 3 or 4 sacks a game or hit a quarterback like a handful of times, it's going to be dicey, and they're going to play in close games because sacks are drive killers.
Yep.
And pressure creates bad decisions. And we know Baker and Sam make bad decisions just based on covering them. So that said, you gotta turn on the motor. But I think that's a good place to close out for the week.
Wait, I got one more sack stat for you as you're mentioning that.
To me, I love that.
Well, I think one of these we've talked about. Myles Garrett has more than they do put together. I think he has 20 now in the season. He's going to probably set the NFL record in Cleveland. But I read this yesterday and just was astonished by it. Do you know how many sacks Denver has? They lead the NFL.
They're probably in the late 30s, early 40s.
55.
What?
Triple the Panthers.
Well, no wonder they've won 10 of the last 11.
Yeah, they're winning. That's it. That's to your point. I mean, it's just ridiculous that the Broncos get to the quarterback all the time. And watching that game even last night, we're taping this on a Tuesday, but watching the way the Chargers were getting after Hurts and he ended up turning the ball over 5 times. They made Jalen Hurts look really bad. And it was a testament to pressure. I mean, he made two turnovers on one play. I've never seen that in my life.
In the opposite way, too, Justin Herbert, I think, got sacked 6 times.
Oh, yeah, they were killing it. Both sides, just great defense, and that's 2 playoff teams. And you're right. That's the one thing where when the Panthers aren't playing well, you just watch the guy just back there patting the ball. Very frustrating, I'm sure, for the secondary as well. For all that, their defense is way better than it was last year. They got a chance. But you're right. They got to get some more pressure on the quarterback.
Well, we're not going to continue to pat the ball. We're going to let it fly right now. Again, no cups or laptops were harmed in the making of this podcast. Today's show is produced by, hi, Reese. Sorry, my youngest son just entered the room. School's out. But let's try this outro again. All right, that'll do it for us this week. Again, no cups of coffee or laptops were harmed in the making of this podcast. Today's show is produced by the terrific Zach Dennis. Please subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts by searching Processing Blue. And if you watch on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get notified whenever new episodes drop. For Scott, I'm Mike. That's a wrap.